I am an employee in a company and I am thinking of submitting my resignation and starting my own project. What do you advise me to do? A lot of people have asked me this question recently in different ways. The common thing between these people is that they are either fed up with their jobs or they have ambition and a legitimate desire to achieve wealth, and that is a very great thing. The truth is that these people's motives and goals are very understandable to me, but what is striking is that there have recently been young people who have just graduated from university and who really hate the idea of a job or work for people and want to start their own business and be their own boss and owner of the money. If I were to ask any of you now, what would be better for you? To be an employee in a company working under a manager, or to get a fixed salary at the end of the month, or to own a project that can bring you money while you sleep at home? I think most of you would prefer a project, but let's pause for a moment and ask the important questions. Is a project really better than a job? Is it a good idea to resign from your job and start a project? When is a job 100 times better than a project? And when is it the opposite? What is the best time to leave a job and start a project? Is everyone good at starting projects? The most important question, which will clarify many things for you, is why are most of those who think about starting projects either unemployed or unhappy employees with low salaries? This is part of what we will be chatting about in today's episode. Before we talk about the job or project issue, let me quickly tell you a nice story. Uganda is considered one of the poorest countries in the world, a country with 24 million people. A large portion of who live below the poverty line and suffer from problems in education, health, employment, infrastructure, and everything in between. But despite its extreme poverty, this country has something very strange, which is that the percentage of people who start new businesses is very large, to the point that it is much higher compared to America itself, which has the strongest economy in the world and is considered the mother of entrepreneurship in the entire world. Between 2000 and 2004, the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor conducted a survey on the rate of new business formation in 24 countries. One of the most important findings of this study is that the percentage of working-age citizens who establish new businesses in poor countries like Uganda, Peru, Venezuela, and Ecuador is more than double the same rate in the United States. That is, if the percentage of citizens who establish new projects in America is 10%, for example, you will find in Uganda the percentage is over 20%. How is this possible? How can a poor country like Uganda establish so many new projects? I will tell you that Uganda, as a poor country, has a very high unemployment rate. People there cannot find work, and even those who are employed do so for very low wages. This is what makes a large portion of them resort to establishing private projects because they have almost nothing to lose. They either cannot find work or are employed for low wages. This is the opposite of what happens in rich countries like America. For example, in America, the per capita GDP in 2020 exceeded $83,000, and a majority of citizens worked for salaries that, if not sufficient, at least guarantee them a decent life. At the same time, they benefit from the social and health insurance system provided by the companies they work for on the one hand and the government on the other. Therefore, in these circumstances, it is not easy for an American citizen who works as an employee in the government or in a private company to leave the benefits provided by the job and go resign and open a project on his own account, because he will simply have to give up many things for the project to either succeed or fail. On this basis, most Americans stay in their jobs even if they are not we like it. In his 2008 book, Entrepreneurial Illusions, Scott Shane, a professor of entrepreneurship studies at Case Western Reserve University, argues that when real wages remain high, people are less likely to start new businesses and prefer to remain employees because the opportunity cost of leaving their jobs remains high. So what exactly is this opportunity cost? Rob, in my country, opportunity is something you give up in order to get something else in return. For example, if we assume that you are an employed man and you receive, for example, $1,000 per month, which means $12,000 per year. Now, if you quit the job this morning to start a business, your opportunity cost would be $12,000 per year. You are giving up this amount and directing your time and effort to your project, which may or may not succeed. Now, the larger the amount or benefits you are giving up, the more you will think 1,000 times before resigning from your job to start a project. Why? I'm telling you all this simply so you can understand the motivations behind why a large portion of people choose to start their own businesses. It is not possible to be comfortable in your job or even hate it, but still get paid from it. Is it reasonable that your needs are met and then you suddenly leave them and go and invest everything behind you and in front of you in a project like any other project, with a higher failure rate than success rate, just because you heard some famous person tell you to follow your passion or to get up and run after your passion? Some of you may think that I am saying never leave your job and that the job is better than the project, But that is not true. A job and a project, they're ultimately just two options. In certain circumstances and contexts, a job may be better than a project, and vice versa. Of course, no one would disagree that turning from an employee working in a company receiving a fixed salary at the end of the month to the owner of a successful project that generates a large income is a great thing indeed. But the question remains, is this something that suits all employees, or can all employees do it? And the more important question is, how is this transition from job to project implemented so we don't hit a wall? There is something in economics called risk-return, or the reciprocal relationship between return and risk. The idea behind this relationship, in Raymond's terms, is that the higher the investment risk, the higher the expected return, and the higher the expected losses, and vice versa. Now, when we look at the job, we find that its risks are few and its expected gains are limited. Because in the end, you have a fixed salary that you will receive at the end of the month, but at the same time, the expected profit from it is not large. Your ceiling is messed up. You will not get higher no matter how hard you try. On the other hand, a project has greater risks than a job, but its potential gains are much greater and literally limitless. At the same time, its potential losses are also large. That means if you invest $10,000 in the project, you could earn multiples of that amount, or you could lose it all in an instant and be in debt. Another one will say to me, I understand all this, and I had decided to leave my job to start a project. What should I do? That sounds great. The first piece of advice I would give you is not to quit your job. Start working on the project while you are still at your job. By the way, these are not my words. These are the words of Dorie Clark, a professor of business administration at Duke University. Clark says in an article published in the Harvard Business Review in April 2020 that working on the project while keeping your job offers you many advantages, including avoiding losing everything at once and having more time to test the project's potential for success without experiencing significant psychological pressure, because in this case, your life is not dependent on the project's success. Someone will say to me, I'm basically fed up with my job at the company I'm working for and I want to start a project and relax. This brings us to the second piece of advice. Don't let your desire to quit your job and start a business be just a reaction to being fed up or resentful of your situation at your company. Guys, the project is neither easy nor simple. It is a step with great risks and may cause you losses that you cannot bear. If you're bored with your job, your solution may simply be to look for a job somewhere else where you feel comfortable. The third piece of advice is to look for suitable partners to join your project. There is a silly mistake that many people who are thinking of starting projects make, which is that they fall in love with the idea and see its success as completely guaranteed. This is what makes them prefer to finance the project entirely with their own money in order to monopolize all its potential profits for themselves. They forget that if they lose, they will have to carry the burden. There is no investment in a world that is risk-free. Reason and logic dictate that you reduce your exposure to these risks as much as possible and let someone else carry them with you, even if you can finance the project yourself and be sure that this is better for you. In the opinion of the English poet Sir John Bateman, 50 of something off means that having 50% of a successful project is better for you than 100% of a failed project. Now to the fourth tip. Before you think about leaving your job to start a business, it is essential to have a financial safety net. So what does this mean? So you've decided to follow your passion and quit your job to start your own business. That's great. But this project will probably take time to get off the ground and generate income. It may also remain dormant and never get off the ground because you don't know if you have an idea or not. Most new businesses fail in 2019. 90% of new businesses in America failed, according to data from the Small Business Administration. That range of 10 of us started businesses tomorrow morning, only one would likely succeed and the rest would go back to the bottom. That's why anyone entering a project must have a certain amount of money set aside. It provides his family with a financial safety net and covers their needs for, say, 2 years. If your family is hungry, you won't be buying steak, you'll be buying the cheapest food available. That's why I say, don't put all your money into a project, no matter how confident you are in it, because in that case you'll be gambling with your life and the life of your family. Imagine losing all your money after losing your job because of your own free will. You will literally wish you could do anything to make ends meet. Before we move on to the final point in the episode, it is important to note that starting a project might be a bad idea if you don't have the experience and skills that qualify you for it. In this case, it is better for you to keep your stable job, especially if your salary is good. Okay, does this mean that you will remain an employee your whole life, waiting for your salary to be deposited at the end of every month? Of course not. You can create an additional source of income for yourself by investing part of your savings in any field or project you like. This way, you combine the advantages of investment and job security. From here, we move on to a very important phenomenon that has recently begun to spread: The aversion of some recent university graduates to the idea of employment, preferring to start new projects on their own. Even if they find a job, their moods are bad and they have no problem leaving it and risking everything at any moment. In an article published last April in the New York Times, American writer Kevin Ross says that one of the most important reasons for the spread of the phenomenon is the emergence of what is called YOLO economy, which you are familiar with. YOLO is an abbreviation for only or you live once. Many young people are quickly becoming bored and frustrated with the rules and obligations imposed on them as employees, which has led them to lean more toward more adventurous decisions, such as resigning from their jobs and trying to start their own businesses. But there's one point many young people don't realize. Working as employees for a while will help them greatly when they think about starting businesses later on. Guys, there are skills and experiences. One learns it while he is an employee. He will never learn it in schools or books. That's why the famous Chinese billionaire Jack Ma advised young people that the first thing they should do after graduation is to look for a job in a company with a good manager and to work under that manager for at least 3 years. That concludes my main points. I have a question for you. Why do the second and third generations of wealthy families often fail to preserve the wealth that the first generation created and squandered? I will follow all your answers in the comments. Finally, if you liked the episode and would like to see us again, subscribe to the channel and wait for us, God willing.